welcome to Tom Hopkins International's recording of Sell It Today, Sell It Now, Mastering the Art of the One-Call Close. To present this phenomenal system, here's Tom Hopkins.
I'm very excited about this new program, Sell It Today, Sell It Now, the Art of the One-Call Close. And to give you a little background how I created it, I, of course, live my life looking for ways to better teach people in sales. I'm always looking for technique, strategies, everywhere I go, because my life is training salespeople. It's my passion. Well, I got hired years ago by a company, a large company. They have 500 salespeople. And whenever I do a custom program, I go into the company, analyze their training, because I want to know what they teach their people. I don't want to come in and teach something contradictory to their beliefs or their strategies. So I spent a week with their training director, Pat Leiby. And after a week, I said, Pat, what you teach your people is so good. I have to work with you, if you'll let me, to co-author a book. And I've been asked by many people to do that, and I've never found the material I felt was so valuable for my students. Well, I worked with Pat. We wrote the book, created an audio program, and then, of course, are now putting this on video for you to enjoy. Now, as we do, I want you to realize when you hear the title, Sell It Today, Sell It Now, the Art of the One-Call Close, please realize we're talking about one call, not one time. See, some of you have a one-step presentation and closing sequence. And you know that 98 to 100% of the time, if you don't get to check that presentation, you'll maybe never see them again. Now, that would be closing it today. Some of you have a two-step process. You go in for the first call, gather data, come back, present, and then close. Some of you may have a three-step process. What I want you to realize in this program is whatever your goal is on that call, you must accomplish that. So if there's 3 visits, visit number 1, I must get this done, that's closing on that call. Visit 2, I must get this accomplished, closing on that call. And visit number 3 is when I go in and get the check, get the final commitment, get their approval, close the transaction. Okay? So open your minds to this now and tailor-make it to your situation. Now, the first thing we have to realize that in every selling situation, there are only 4 key obstacles to be overcome. And this is from the moment you meet someone to the moment they own your product or service. Now, understanding and working on these 4 keys will help you quickly lower sales resistance and increase sales acceptance. Thus, you'll reach the goal of the closed sale today. Now, let me start off again by saying there's something important here we must discuss. You see, the amount of sales resistance that a person has when you start a selling situation depends on how they met you. In other words, if the sale is buyer initiated, they call you, they walk into your office, they're the ones looking for the product. If they are the ones that contact the company, that is called buyer initiated, and there'll be less sales resistance. When you contact a stranger with a telephone call, or you go to their business, or you knock on their door, that is seller, which you are the seller of the product, initiated. So when the seller initiates the original contact, there's high sales resistance. Now, I think you realize that when you have a referral and the people send you to meet a friend or relative, there's a lot less sales resistance because they've been told good things about you. So again, keep in mind, one of the first keys in this process is you must determine how much sales resistance there's going to be based on that selling situation. Now, for our example, what I want to do is take it and make it the toughest sale you can ever make, so there'll be 100% sales resistance. Now, there's 4 key obstacles in any selling situation, as I mentioned. The first, of course, is trust. Most people, when they meet a salesperson, start with a feeling of, I feel no trust. Now, our goal in our presentation is to move that from no trust to some trust to lots of trust. Because, see, no one will really let you persuade them to invest in anything if they don't trust you. So, you must work toward helping them think, I feel some trust here. Then, of course, the second obstacle is need. Most people, when you present a product to them in the beginning, say, you know, I feel no need. Our goal in our presentation is to move them and change their mindset to one of, I feel some need, and hopefully you can move them to where, boy, I really need this product. Your third obstacle we must overcome is help. Meaning, most people start off with, I might trust you now, I might really need the product, but I don't know if I want to invest in it with you. Meaning they can have a friend in the business, they might know another company. So no one wants to ever admit they're helpless. However, you can help someone see that you provide answers in areas where they may not be as well informed because you are the professional. And you know exactly what's best for them based on your experience. So you need to change their mindset to one of, I want your help, you see. They want you. You're part of the equation now. And then, of course, the fourth obstacle is hurry. They may trust you now. They may have a need. They may want your help. But now we have a challenge in a procrastinating society where I feel no hurry. Tie in with the word hurry the word urgency, because one of the keys to a great presentation is we must create urgency throughout the entire presentation. Now, unless there's an emergency situation, no one is going to be in a hurry to purchase anything. Your job is to help them see that by taking care of the buying decision today, they'll be better off than if they wait. They need to think, hey, I feel some hurry here in order to take action. Now, the average person starts every sales situation with a high degree of sales resistance. Now, remember, it depends on how the original contact started. To just have you remember that, a referral, lower sales resistance. They contact you, lower sales resistance. You call them, contact, you start the process. They don't know who you are when you begin. High sales resistance. So when I started to develop this program, I thought, how can I visually have people see the process of reducing sales resistance and increasing sales acceptance? So what I decided to do was use the thermometer, because your goal is to see visually how we lower it, and we're going to do it in 10-degree increments. So your job is to lower their sales resistance by degrees until it reaches 0 degrees. And that's our goal. So watch the thermometers as we do this presentation, because it'll visually show you how our job has to be handled in closing on this visit. Please realize too many salespeople who are untrained try to increase sales acceptance before they've done an adequate job in the proper sequence of reducing sales resistance. So the Sell It Today system works like that. We're going to look at our thermometers. I'll put in each of the 10 degrees of reducing sales resistance, and then we'll put in the 10 degrees of increasing sales acceptance, and when we're done, we'll have a closed transaction today. So let's start off with the first 10 degrees, lowering it from 100 to 90, and that is the word appropriate. Everything they see and hear from the moment you meet them should be appropriate for the time and place. What this means is that everything you do, everything you say, your dress, your look, everything must fit the situation. Let me give you an example. You wouldn't go into the McDonald's hamburger restaurant and see someone working the counter in overalls. That, for that situation, is inappropriate, and you might lose some trust about this organization, this company. On the other hand, you wouldn't walk into McDonald's and see the man behind the counter wearing a full Brooks Brothers suit either. So everything must be appropriate. Your look, your dress, your original greeting, your handshake, if it's appropriate. Then what happens is just that lowers sales resistance by 10 degrees. The second thing we must work on is the intention statement. Now, your intention statement contains two things. First, it must clearly explain what your intention is. In essence, you walk them through what will happen during your time together. It's almost like an agenda of sorts. Then you'll ask them what they think about it. It's the flow of events. The second thing is it must imply, not state, that it's okay to say no, that this isn't for everyone, that I don't get everyone involved in this. I'm not going to apply any pressure here. Now, what I'd like you to do is listen and watch as I present now a paragraph that'll show you these items. Ready? John, Mary, due to the fact that we have such a great reputation for quality products, thousands of clients have entrusted their business to us. However, it's not for everyone, so we at Tom Hopkins International don't believe in high pressure. Tonight will be an educational experience that will allow you to determine if what we have to offer will truly benefit you. You see what happens when you do that? The people you're presenting to relax and open themselves up to allow their curiosity to take over. So now we've lowered it another 10 degrees with our intention statement. Now the next thing we're going to do, I call the 3 C's. These are the next 3 things we do to lower it another 30 degrees. Now the first C is so important. It's called commonality. Commonality. See, you must be like a detective and look for clues as to their backgrounds, their likes, their interests, habits, their business, anything you can find that you have in common with them. And that's, again, part of getting in there and doing the original presentation so they feel you have something in common with them. The next C is credibility. Credibility. Now, you must learn the story of your company, and you need to back it up with facts and establish 2 things. The bigness of the company, if your company is large, big reputation, been in business for years, or the quality of service you render to clients. See, I believe a professional salesperson takes his or her company and they'll make it a benefit based on what the company is like. If I worked for a small company, I would find a way to make that an advantage. I would say, John, Mary, I did research and looked at all the companies that do what we do. I saw huge companies with thousands of people. Then I saw companies like ours that had a few true professionals and gave more professional service, and so that's why I chose my company. See, you've got to learn to take your company and make it the best based on what you have to offer the client. If you do that, you'll lower it 10 degrees more. So now we go to the next C, which is called competency. Surprisingly, if you do the first 4 steps properly, this 5th one is almost carried, and it's competency. You see, if you've done everything right so far, they start looking at you as a competent person. It'll be assumed in the eyes of your future client. So again, let me let you hear how I would deliver these 3 C's in my presentation, okay? John and Mary, let me put myself in your shoes for a moment. If I were you, I'd have a lot of questions about what I'm offering here tonight. Here are some of the things I'd want answered. Tell me if you're thinking along these same lines. What is this company all about? How long have they been in business? Is this going to cost me money? Is it going to save me money? Will my time spent with you be worthwhile? How long will it take? I assure you I will answer these questions throughout my presentation. But before we get started, are there any other questions in your mind that I didn't mention so I can be certain to answer them as well? You see, if your questions match theirs, which those will, that's exactly what most people are thinking, they perceive you as competent because you're like them. I'd like you to try this idea. It's best if your questions are jotted down in your own handwriting on a page of the legal pad. And it's almost like you were just thinking about these questions before you arrived. Then, of course, you've taken your pen and you've asked them, are there any other questions that I can cover? They might then say, well, one thing we're a little concerned about, and now you take and write down their question right underneath your 5 or 6 that you have on your pad. It's a wonderful way to start writing right in the beginning. And we've lowered them down now another 10 degrees. We're now going to go to the next area, which is problem identification. You see, if this lead we're working with at the table is a referred lead, you'd use the referrer as an example. Meaning, hypothetically, I'm in front of John and Mary, and Tom referred me to these people. Well, of course, I would say, you know, Tom has told me that he discussed with you his previous challenge with, whatever their challenge was. You apparently agreed that you have the same challenge. Is that right? Now, if it's not a referred lead or a previously unknown product, you'll isolate their challenge with good questions and statements. Kind of like this. You know, John and Mary, after our evaluation, many of the clients we serve find that they have a challenge they weren't previously aware of and that our product can definitely help them overcome it. And they've been lowered another 10 degrees of sales resistance. Then we go to the next area, which is discovery. Discovery. Here you educate them as to the value of gathering in-depth information. Using the art of questioning, we help them discover they not only have a need, but there is urgency to make a decision to go ahead. And another 10 degrees is lowered. Then we go to qualify, which is next. Now here is where we would use our needs formula. Remember, NEADS, where we establish just what their qualification needs are. We're going to find out, what do they have now? What do they enjoy? What would they like to alter? Who is the decision maker? And yes, after all of that, we have the solution. Then we go to our next area, which is called need acknowledgement. And you would just say, John and Mary, based on what we have just discussed, wouldn't you agree that this is something your family or your company could benefit from? See, all we're doing here is getting them to acknowledge there could be a need. Now, some of you are going to be sitting in front of a couple or a committee, a group, where they made a decision before you came in that for no reason are they going to say yes today. Now, you'll have some people so strong in this area that you'll feel it when you first walk in. I mean, I sit down and I've done these steps and I can just tell because I'm not getting much input from them. So I say to myself, well, number 10 is very important here, our next step, and that's called pact acknowledgement. And it might go like this. John and Mary, I'll bet when you set the appointment to see us tonight, you didn't say to yourself, this is wonderful. We're going to spend money and invest in a new product tonight. Did you? In fact, it's more likely you may have agreed with each other that you weren't spending any money and that you weren't buying anything. All I ask is that you keep your minds open to the possibility of what we have to offer. Is that fair? Now, you notice what we've also done here? This is your first attempt to get a commitment to say yes to the purchase or to do what your research reveals when you come back with that information. So if we've done all that right, you notice they had 100% sales resistance. We then have got them to some trust. We've got the need, and we're now to 0 degrees on our sales resistance thermometer. So now it's time to go up the other thermometer, which is our sales acceptance thermometer. So let's move to increase that sales acceptance. Ready? The first thing we do down at the bottom of the thermometer is we start with product identification. When your recommendation as to the product or service is selected, you let them know how exciting the results are. See, if I came back on the second visit, I'd start off by establishing rapport, as we always do the next time in. How have you guys been? Gee, it's been 4 days. Anything new and exciting in your life? The weather's been kind of funny, hasn't it? In fact, I think we're about 8 degrees warmer than normal right now. See, we get the rapport established, visit a minute, and then you'd say, you know, John and Mary, based on the information you provided the last time I was here, our recommendation for you is, and you'll let them know what you feel is best for them. You'll now discuss company experience. You see, help them to understand how large a client base has been satisfied. You might say it this way. You know, John and Mary, based on all the years and thousands of clients we've served, most of the recommendations we have tonight are similar to all the other people that we've satisfied with our product. Then you'll go to the next area, which is salesperson expertise. You see, it's important they know that you are a professional. So you're going to share with them your track record with the company. Now, of course, if you're new, and this can be a challenge if you don't have much of a track record, but what you can share with them is that you are, in essence, the go-between and are supported by experts at the company. Something like this. You know, John and Mary, I chose our company because combined we have over 100 years of experience just in my manager and the 2 people I work with. So we're really on target as far as what we can do for you. Also, you must express that these recommendations are the sum total of some of the greatest expertise in your field. Always do this too. Have third-party information available. This can be photos of yourself receiving an award. It could be that article in the paper that you got put in because you were the top person last quarter in your company. It also can be letters from satisfied clients. These would be those proof letters. For example, try it this way. John and Mary, here's a letter I received from a client who said yes to what our research revealed. And you hand them the letter. I will suggest, if it's a long letter, use a yellow highlighter so that their eyes go to the main things you want them to pick off of that letter. And you've increased sales acceptance another 10 degrees. Now we go to third-party endorsements. This is where you show positive articles from the newspaper or magazine about your company. And please, as a professional salesperson, whenever anything comes out in the paper, the magazine, about your company, and it's positive, take it out, laminate it, make sure you keep it clean and crisp so you can show the person. See, people believe what other people say about your company more than what you say about it. And we've increased sales acceptance another 10 degrees. Our next area is called product features. Be sure to answer the prospective client's question, what's in it for me? By providing a fact and a benefit for each feature of your product or service. In other words, there's a truth when people are listening to you at the table. It's not a conscious, it's more of a subconscious reaction. You tell them a fact about your company. We're large, we're the best in the business, we have the greatest reputation. They're subconsciously sitting there, and this little thing is always going in their minds. Well, what's in it for me? What's important to me about that? So it's important when you state a fact, you then follow it up with a benefit. For example, let me choose a home improvement product. Let's just say that I'm in the replacement window business and we have fabulous new windows that are not only energy saving, they're beautiful, they increase the pride of ownership of a home, thus the appreciation and value. Great product. I might say this as a fact. You know, John and Mary, our windows are made of the finest and highest grade aluminum available today. Well, of course, they're sitting there saying what? What's in it for me? So what? So then you follow it up with, because of our construction techniques, our clients find that they enjoy significant savings on fuel and maintenance. So now there's the benefit. And we've again increased sales acceptance another 10 degrees. Let's look at the next thing. It's presentation demonstration. Now you would present your proposal, the research you found, the product benefits, and you're always going to be doing it in this formula. You're going to give them a fact, follow up with a benefit of the fact to them, then you're going to try to create, with what you say, a sense of urgency, and then you're going to ask or request for their feedback. So again, fact, benefit, urgency, request for feedback. Kind of like this. Ready? You know, John and Mary, as we mentioned earlier, our windows are of a very high quality. What that means to you is that you'll spend more time enjoying the view through them than maintaining them and working on them. And you know, with our special fall promotion, you'll save an additional 20% on installation. So, John and Mary, if you were serious about saving money on your fuel and energy costs, when do you think would be the best time to have your windows replaced? Did you see all 4 steps? Fact, benefit, urgency, feedback. Very important. And I'm going to give you a kind of an assignment I'd love you to think about, especially if you're a manager and you've been in the business many years. I'd love you to take your product or service and maybe brainstorm with your team and say, let's take a piece of paper and list every fact about our product. Then we're going to write what the main benefit to them is. Then we're going to see what are the things we can say to create urgency. And then we're going to have our feedback from them. Now, I was never aware of this when I was back in real estate many, many years ago. But, you know, I did things like this, and I think back, that's why I closed so many sales. Meaning, for example, I'm going to try to show you how I did it with them. I think this will maybe turn on some lights for you, too. Ready? I'd meet John and Mary, and they'd come into the office. And after we visit a little bit and I get them a cup of coffee, I'd say, you know, John and Mary, obviously you're looking for a home now because you've heard about what's going to be happening in the future with our freeway that's coming in. And they go, well, we didn't know too much about it. We're new to the area. Oh, boy, is your timing right. You see, they have already proposed the freeway. And as you're probably aware, whenever a freeway comes in, bringing more people, easier to get to work, there's just a jump in appreciation in property. So, wow, great timing. Now, that is the first time of imprinting in their mind urgency. Then, of course, I'd show them homes. I find the one that they like. And I would then say, after benefits of the property, benefits of the location, I'd simply say, well, based on what I told you about the freeway and this home being in such a great location, being in the school district you wanted, when do you think the best time would be to see if they'll go along with us and accept what you'd like to pay for the home? Honey, we need to do this now. And then I went and got feedback from them as to, well, what do you think we should do? Just maybe make up a proposal for the seller? Come on, in fact, before we do that, let's go over the financing to make sure it makes sense. Okay, come on in here. I'd sit them down, go over financing, then I would move into the final closing sequence. I hope you felt that, okay? Then, of course, we go to the next step to increase sales acceptance, another 10 degrees, which is called the 3-option close. Now, what we do here is we allow them to satisfy their natural urge to shop around by presenting 3 possible ways of handling their need. First, we show a product, a service, or the solution that maybe doesn't resolve their need 100%. Then we show another that does slightly more than they need. Last, we show them the product or service that you believe to be the best answer for their need. And it's amazing. They will choose 70% of the time the one you put in the middle of your presentation as you show them the three options. Then, of course, we've now increased sales acceptance another 10 degrees. We'll go to the next area, which is called break the pact. Now, if you remember back, in our sales resistance formula, we had them acknowledge they may have made a pact. Now we're going to break it, kind of like this. Ready? John and Mary, do you remember how we joked earlier about how you both possibly made a commitment to do nothing about your needs tonight? Mary, I'm going to ask you first. How do you feel about what our research revealed? Now, with that one little question, you listen to the answer and notice the other party's reaction. Then you ask the same question of the second decision maker. John, how are you feeling? See, each will see the other moving forward, agreeing to the proposal, and the pact will be broken. You might say it like this. You know, John and Mary, after what you've seen here tonight, do you think it might be wise to release each other from the commitment to do nothing if what we're offering truly makes sense to you and your family? Just that one little sentence, and they'll break the pact, and you've closed the transaction. And we've increased it 10 more degrees. Then we go to the next area, which is called trial summary. Now, what trial summary is you now just tell them a summarization of all the things they've agreed are important to them. You just say this. So, John and Mary, based on that, let's summarize. We've agreed that it makes sense to replace the windows for the appreciation of the value of your home, to lower your energy costs, which are skyrocketing in our country, to, of course, get it done before the summer so we have even more savings. And I would hit 2 or 3 more on that one product or service. Then you just simply say, John, so at this point, don't you agree it's a wise decision to get started this week? You know, Tom, I sure do. I think it's something we should do. And then, of course, you then move right to the next step, which is called the investment close. In other words, we now ask for the money. You just smile and say, so to get started right now, we'll need a check in the amount of, and we'll get your approval right here on our paperwork. Oh, I hope that you will work on these 2 thermometers. I also hope that you'll take each step, and if it's not quite right for your product or service, that's one of your goals in the training, to tailor make it. For you that are brand new, a lot of this may not have a lot of meaning till you get to the table or the desk of presentation numerous times. That's why it's so important you review it. You take your workbook, you analyze the 10 steps of reducing sales resistance, the 10 increasing sales acceptance. You make all this part of your presentation, and I promise you'll be stronger at the table in presenting. You'll handle areas of concern better. You'll close more sales. You'll get more referrals. Your income will go up, and that's what this is all about. Don't you agree?